Okay. All right, so we're going to start with a restorative practice, horizontal props. So everything on your mat is stretched across it. So the whole kind of space on the edges of the mat is covered by a bolster and blankets at the back. Not only is there a bolster, but right in front of the bolster is a block that's at its lowest setting. So if you're right next to the wall, be sure you're not going to be jammed up against it. So I want you to sit up on the block first so that you are getting the block to support your hips. Okay, I know sometimes I'll observe and people will be a little too far back. So don't be afraid to be a little forward with your props here. So when you do lower back, and this will make sense when you, even though you've done this a zillion times, perhaps um, as you mature, right, your body ages, you might notice some challenges with the spine, although we know this is a good thing generally, right, for our spinal circulation and enhancing that openness of the chest. We want to be careful that the support is very firm. So the block is pretty firm and it's right next to my bolster. And then when I bend through the legs, I'm going to take a sandbag either across the ribs or the tops of the legs. You choose. Okay, so if your sand is across and you inhale through the nose and there's a lift in the belly, that would be a good placement of your sand. You can feel it just right below the sandbag. If you feel like this is claustrophobic, which sometimes I do, I'll let the legs straighten out. Either way, I let the legs straighten out and then place the sand across the upper thighs. Okay. So you can keep the legs bending, you can let the legs extend. And then when you elongate through this front space, stretching the breathing muscles, it requires you to stretch open the arms. So the blankets could be one or two under your head. I think at this time, I'm going to go back to one blanket because I want to feel length in my neck and not so much rounding. So I have to press the occiput, like the center of the back of my skull, to the blanket. So it feels like my chin is slightly tilted versus pushing it down towards my chest. Okay, so feel how you measure the circulation here via the breath, relaxing the eyes. And once the facial orientation can soften, begin to kind of do that scanning, almost like you turn the focus, the visual focus internally to how the inner landscape is in motion with the breath. How many places can you encounter as you breathe? And you can fuss around and kind of reset the cloth on your body, kind of feel what is supportive, assuming it's cloth, so that you're feeling supported and not uncomfortable with it. And I've had my feet just touching the wall. And I'm kind of enjoying that. I can feel when the feet turn out, then I can try to set the feet so that they're as parallel straight up as possible. Kind of hook the heels. Feel that mild amount of the heel kind of hooking down and the orientation of the movement of the ribs. Let's take a few moments. The likelihood of things changing slightly, like the abdominal area lengthens a little bit, things kind of shed some of the holding patterns. So maybe setting some intention that things can shed, right? Some holding, some gripping, possibly shedding that, even if it's just here in this practice. That's all you have right now. So breathing in through the nose, exhaling, letting go. If they're feeling pretty confident about the support under you, it still could mean you bend the knees. Some people just feel better with the knees hinging here. But the hips, the front of the hip line should be in less of a hinge. So if I bend the knees, I'm not trying to fully pull them up towards my upper thigh bones. I'm trying to still feel some space at the front of the hips. So we'll take cobbler's pose, which, who knows, maybe the sand on the front of the thighs works for it. Sometimes it might. So the feet come together, the soles of the feet, and the knees move out. If you have sand up on the ribs, it's probably going to be a little easier to position, but I find it works okay for my hip bones. And adductors with the feet in the connection together can find that circulation, trying to balance. You might actually get into this feeling some integration of the hips. But if your feet are too high up, right, and it feels like it's uncomfortable in your back, then you just slide them farther down away from the core of the body. I find that too much on my knees, so I keep them kind of close and just decide depending on sensation. Right? If the inner thigh feels stretched, that's okay. That's not hopefully painful. It might be surprising how tense it can be, but that's an interesting lymph drain area. So it's likely to feel some circulation disadvantage from how it is in your body, where it is placed in your body, the inner leg. So take a few more moments, whether you keep the sand on or slide it off, where you can feel the circulation in the legs, inside, inner leg. Okay, the ribs probably expand a slight bit more with the feet together. And now feel if the feet are pressing, that you start to lift up so the position of the knees points back up. And I like to let my heels push out, kind of toe heel my feet so the toes end up turning in and the knees rest together. Okay, this is how we'll come into our side sage pose. We're going to start with the knees positioned inwards. This isn't side sage, I know, but we're emphasizing preparation. So I would just slide the sand towards the left, okay? And the knees are motioning in. So I want to say kind of the hip flaps, right? They release out. Why not? It sounds interesting. So the knees are together, so the thighs have a pretty good amount of tone here. Although this is constructive rest pose, so it's not a big toner position. Now, as you reach back, if you have one blanket, add the second one again. You just slide it. Hopefully, it's an easy thing to adapt to. And then noticing, right, this brings even the circulation of the chest can be kind of interesting. It kind of dropped down. Now we're going to work on a little bit of lift in the chest. So you have to actually organize the shoulders. So we're going to shift the block out from underneath. If you're using a block overhead for side sage, I would just put it back there now. Overhead, drop it, place it. And then the hip, kind of the valley here in that lower basin of the pelvis drops, or it droops. And then you roll onto that bolster to the left. There's a fine art to this, right? To going into restoratives. And then once you're on that left side, take a ball and place it on the inside of the right thigh, just above the inside of the knee or right on the inside of the knee, unless you don't use it for this. And then start to put that sand, so it's side. And it could be across the side, it could be on the right side ribs or across the hip. And as you reach with that upper limb, it is actually a side limb though, if you're in this shape, right? It's a side limb. Okay, so feel if the chest is open and the waist is lengthening, and relax the weight of your head into the blanket. Right arm stretches overhead. It probably can either move onto a block or you can move the block So it's better for your shoulder today. Could go to the side or overhead, or place the block. Could be right next to the other hand. So I find this one to be interesting too, because of that stretch of the deltoid. The trick is to get the weight of your head to relax. It seems to be as if looking around or lifting your head or neck is super helpful in the poses. That's, I think, what our brain is trying to figure out. So if you can relax the brain and then let the breath take over as the focus. And feel the pathway that you're creating in that side. So if you like to move the right leg farther back and you're feeling like you have mobility, then take that direction. See if you can reach that right leg and stretch out through the psoas, so a little bit of hip flexor. I think it could be called a breath flexor. Maybe never heard that term, but breath flexors, hip psoas. So the weight of your head is resting. Feel the movement of the ribs. And with that encouragement of movement, right? You're trying to encourage movement in the center body, the core chamber. It might start to feel like there's some, who knows, maybe digestive experience, which could be different one side to the next. So just allowing that to continue, but absorbing the nourishment even from the pose. I know maybe sometimes those sounds are pose nourishment. Okay, so with that arm either over head or to the side, let's start to motion. So this right side has had some length, right, in the side band. Now when we come around to hands and knees, you might just let your sand kind of slide itself off. And then using your influence with gravity would probably not be to push yourself up, but when you move the right knee next to the left, if you can lift and focus on the hip pressing. So I push into my left hip and then I turn. And then once I rotate to hands and knees, you might, I don't know if you've done this before with the ball we have at some point, but place the ball between the thighs. Doesn't work between the knees very well, does it? Because you'd be on the floor with that. You can put a blanket under your knees if you need that. If you need that. And hands stretching out, open, and feel the spacer of the ball, right? So I try to actually scoot my legs close so that it feels like it is kind of hugging into it. It is really challenging to try to squeeze the ball when the legs are positioned this way, unless you have them in other directions. It's kind of, I think it's humorous to try to assign my muscles to squeeze. There's just too many other things I have to assign my focus to. So when you round your back, and there's that ball, maybe for some of us, round the spine, and then inhale, feeling the arch of the spine, chest is forward, alternate arching and flexing. The spine. Now toes under, lift up the knees. And yeah, it's a challenge to keep the ball there. So you might find that it's like you got a uni leg that you're trying to kind of cuddle into the ball with the leg. And the habit might be that you are using your arms a lot here. Okay, so feel where the roots of the toes are pressing. Maybe the heels are up. That's completely fine. I like to lift the heels sometimes on this and see if I can actually push a little bit into the ball. When my heels are down, it's a different pressure kind of system. So either way, heels are up, heels are down. We're good with either one. But attempt to circulate back towards the brain. That's all we're up to is circulation to the upper forces of the body. Okay, now when you lower down to the knees, careful with the ball there, shifting so that you take the ball away and come into up dog. So hips are forward on the bolster, lifting up your head, stretching, hopefully through the chest. Okay, we got the bolster horizontal. Now lower down. Pretty happy to do this one. Elbows are out on the blankets, elbows are open. And then I lower my head down to the hands and focus here on the awareness in the leg. So I want you to lift the right leg up, left leg stays down, of course, right leg lifts straight up behind you. Doesn't go very far, imagine. So feeling how the glute muscles, right, respond when they are going kind of backwards. They spend a lot of the day sitting or standing. So this is definitely exciting for them to work through. Lower the right leg, relax the foot, and then your head can touch into your arms here. Okay, then lift the left leg up. Relax the foot, don't point the toes or flex it. Just focus on the strength into the buttock, right? So you're working on rear control here. Head is onto the arms. Okay, lower down the left leg and then lifting up your head. So there is a little bit of tummy time here. The elbows are wide. You're strengthening into that center line of the core of the body. Now, likely your legs kind of press down, but see if you can work with reaching back through your feet and lifting the knees up and recruiting the glutes as a structure, right? This interesting kind of beam across, low band, across to the glutes, to see if you can lift up the knees so the tops of the feet touch down. It's pretty good back strengthening. And now as you lower the knees down, relax your head down to the arms, relax the glutes, breathe. Okay, now when you come up this time, just the front body has the focus. Hands reach on the other side of the blanket, straight off of the mat for most of us here. Fingers spread out. And I laugh because it's challenging to relax the glutes on this one. They almost respond right away. So feel if you can lift up your head so the front of the spine strengthens. You'll probably notice your pulse a little bit on this one in the abdomen. Okay. So we use the spine, the strength along the spine versus gripping the glutes. You might still grip your glutes, but not overly. Strengthen the back. And then bring the right and left hand back and gently push just the right amount, not too much. Pivot to the right hip. Take side hinge on the right side. Take it easy so you're not over pressurizing right your shoulders. So I lean into the right side. I take the ball on the inside of that left leg. And then as I lean, I work with the weight of I think the weight of my head is probably over discussed here. You are trying to let any part that's touching a prop, including the ball, to surrender its weight once you kind of assign the circulation. So we're going side band. So sand on. Wherever it seems to assemble itself is just fine. On one side, you might fuss less. And then when you reach with that left limb, maybe you just explore the movement. You don't have to put the arm and stop the position of the arm. You might like to roll the shoulder back, stretch open the chest. Maybe you roll on the back of your head. And then feel when that arm is in that reach, how the waist extends. So feeling where there's a deep breath and how the ribs move. And I don't think the glutes have to do much here. I don't think you have to grip your rear muscles. It's as if you've now motioned to the side band. Let's give it about another 10 breaths. Okay, now when you transition out of this shape, we're going to go right into an inversion. So Viparita Karani. So I want you to keep that sand in easy reach. Just let it drop nearby. And if you have the block overhead, to the side it goes. Okay. So when I try to get this balance into the next shape, I know I'm going to go one less blanket at some point, but I'll just leave it for now, the blankets. And then when you lean into your right rib cage and kind of round up to come to sitting, slide the bolster a little bit forward, keep the ball nearby. And then when you do sit up, you might find an interesting way so that you're right on the edge of the bolster, right? The back of your pelvis is forward, like you don't have the block anymore there, but you want to have as much of your pelvis and your lumbar supported. So when you do dive back, move a blanket back, keep it nearby because we might need it for something, and then reorient the bolster support so it feels good for you. It should feel as if, I think by now, this crowd is kind of used to some of the balancing of the lower spine that already has its flexion. Probably it's ready to go with this shape. So when you take that sand support, it's kind of an option if you want to use a sandbag on this one, because we are going to do the legs up at the end, but today you might go without the sand at the walls. We'll kind of play with that. But when you push your feet up, it's different without the wall because you have to, you're not able to let the load of the body push into the wall. But when you do have that lift, it's a different strength in the knees. It's great for the knees. Unless they're fluid filled, then you will feel the inflammation on this one. But if they're pretty free of retention, it's a good one. So feel the flex. And then notice the mixture of movement with the breath in the lower abdomen and the diaphragm. So you want to let the abdomen relax so that the diaphragm can strengthen. Right, so if I grip my belly and then I'm somehow trying to breathe, it would be kind of an opposite effect for the support of my organs here. So when I have that lift of the legs, let it be real basic, just they're vertical, straight up as you can tell. Of course, some of us, the legs kind of swing a little bit back. That's the flexibility kind of rationale for this, but see if you can be focused on the situation of the circulation here, reversing the flow to the heart. So rest the eyes. And monitoring the balance. And then feeling it's easy to kind of lock into the stomach sometimes. So purposely create movement in that lower front core. And that might be helpful into your back as well. So you're feeling the movement sequence in the belly. Now, when you send the knees into bending, we're going to keep that awareness of kind of the load of the back of the leg, at least one leg at a time. So as you bend through the knees, let's move the sand to the left front thigh and let the right leg extend up, and take a belt under the right foot. Make sure your belt's in a loop. So we got a loop of the belt all connected under the right foot, straight up with the leg. And then as you feel the leg in support, right, you're supporting it, you might add on a brain float. So likely you might have to make the loop a little bit smaller to measure it up to the back of your head. And you're gonna layer that loop support behind your head center, right? So it's the occiput. And when I lower my head back, well, I don't actually have to purposely push it because the belt supports it. But it might be too much. You know, this one feels just a cinch too much there on my hamstring. So, you know, kind of feel, even palpate the back of the right leg and notice, you know, closer to the knee, the definition is clearly there. And then you want to feel, maybe if you turn the foot in, turn the foot out, just feel where there is an opportunity to balance the flow in the leg, which could mean loosen up the belt so the foot pushes away. The neck is another issue, huh? Like how your head leans back, how far you want to do that. It's so personal, so not a good one to compare. The sand is an option if it's just a sliding away. You might have to pivot the sandbag so there's a bulk of it at the top of the thigh. Yeah, for me, when I go straight up and down with the sand, sometimes it doesn't feel good on my hip. Not that it hurts the hip, it just doesn't feel balanced. You can't just let the body receive the pose. Right, so the left foot could move a little bit out, and then shaping the focus here, head back again. I'm going to fuss and fuss and fuss on this one so it feels right. And you want to accept a good support. And this is a pretty mechanical one. Now, if your left foot is turning out and you know it, it's hard for you to keep it straight up. Just notice how the right foot responds. It can't do any turning out really. There's no way the upper leg is going to start pivoting. So feeling that that's pretty good. Notice what's good with the feet. Okay, and then let the weight of your head lean a little bit back. Breathe. Okay, now slide the sand to the belly and then move the left foot up into the belt. Hands behind your head. Switch sides, right foot down. Try to go immediately so that the pelvis kind of doesn't know the movement of the leg as much as your brain might know that, but you're still balancing the pelvis. And then the sand can go back over to the next leg. And you decide, right, is your sand going to be kind of in a kind of pivot on the leg? So mine is kind of in a side band. It's not straight down, it's not straight across. It just kind of works with the contour of my hip bone. So if you think about the pelvis and how the hip awareness is inside, there's a lot of contour, right? Just like your spine has contours. There's so many curve and contours in the body. This is a good one to enhance on the hip. And then the weight of your head leans back. Yeah, the side might feel better. I find this is a little more neutral response in my leg. I don't think your glutes are gripping on this position, so enjoy that. Hands could be out to the side. They could be stretching a little bit farther back and open. You might even enjoy that other blanket under your hands behind you. Let the body soak up the support. Maybe the eyes closing. Feel the right amount of weight into your belt with the weight of the head. Okay, some of us find that the knee really does push a bit in time. And so before it gets to too much hyperextension, you might feel a little micro bend of the left leg at the knee. With the right foot, try the toes to be up. See if you can bring that awareness way high in the hips. It's a little more meaningful than just the foot. Okay, now the breath might become a little bit more simplified here when we get out of this one. So when we slide the belt off the back of the head, you're going to move the head back to the one blanket and taking the sand away. Cross the left leg to the right. Hold the belt with the right hand. Let the left arm open, or it actually just relaxes out. Yeah, the leg crossover is not too far, right? Feel that you connect into the side band of the leg, like from the side of the knee up towards the lateral, the sheath of the side of the leg, just lateral sheathing. And so feel if the knee bending a little bit starts to correspond with hip, even like this tiny feeling in the waist. Doesn't need to be very big, but it's kind of a micro sensation. Okay, so you're limited with swinging the leg because you've got the bolster. So I like to use this kind of elementary feature because then the lower back is pretty safe, right? It's stabilized. So when you bend through the left leg, be careful because sometimes when you have a sheer pull with the belt, you can actually feel like it's pulling the side of the knee. So you got to find the muscle control on the leg, move the leg straight up, and then shift. So the right foot up into the belt. We're keeping it really simple, hands holding, and then left hand takes over the belt together. And now try to keep the crossover at the same range. So if you start to push the foot down and you want to stay right across, so it's about the bolster, right where it's at, you're stretching the leg over to the left, the right leg. Yeah, and maybe just let the eyes close and feel the sensation in that right side band. Now we're out from the waist work, right, as much as we're now on the leg. So the waist movement with the breath can be quite calm. The left foot might be turned out a little bit. That would be favorable. If it kind of slightly does that, it's okay. It's nice to always have something to work towards. Breathing. And now pull, bend the right knee, and then as the leg goes up, take both feet move up into the belt. Now push out the feet, and as you hold on to the belt or you let it go, you feel safe with releasing and the legs be free and the support of the loop. Yeah, the one interesting part here, since we don't do a lot of standing poses in restorative, is that you can kind of feel the hinge work as if you're in a wide stance here, but not putting the weight in the feet. But can you find some relative evenness with how your feet push out? If you were standing up, you'd have some different kind of weight issues into the bones of the feet, but now there's no weight into their bones. So feel when the legs push out and then feel the resistance with the side of the leg. If it's not feeling the resistance, you can make the belt loop wider, but when you hold the belt, the resistance a little bit more there, isn't it? Maybe not. It's pretty even. Except that you're pulling. All right. So have a little bit of fun with it. Try to make some figure eights. If you have no hold of the belt, it's a little easier. And if you're holding the belt, it's not as easy. Okay. Now, when the legs have their motion of bending, this is a little tricky to create that figure eight because the knees kind of swerve in. But when you push out with the feet, bend the knees, hold onto the belt and slide the feet together. Slide the belt off with the bend of the knees, and then let's get a ball. Where did that go? Okay, it's hiding. All right, so place it between the knees and squeeze. Really push in. So how about when you feel that you push into the ball, that the feet lift? Now this, if you don't have a ball, a block would work okay. The nice thing about the ball is when I push in, there's kind of a little bit of easier reflex to get the feet to lift because there's always further to push, unless it pops, okay? So take about 2 more of those. So squeeze, let the feet lift. The mid, kind of the lower back area might feel this push and lift. Your lower abdomen probably doesn't know what to do with it. It kind of it has a little bit of lift up. Okay, so take a little bit of motion here. So arms spread out, knees going side to side. And as the knees shift, try to feel the reach of the torso a little bit more now. So you almost kind of roll off the bolster a slight bit as you go side to side. So give yourself plenty of time. It's not as if it's 1 count. You only get a second on the side. Give yourself plenty of time on each side to explore how the reach is, especially in the waist. It could be tricky. You might feel like you need a block on the side so that you don't feel like you're falling over, but you're on your back. You're not going to fall too far. Okay. Now, when you feel that leaning and you kind of challenge yourself, feel when you're kind of pre-challenge. It's the pre-challenge. So the knees go side and you feel like your chest is open. This is tricky. This is that you've gotten to the point where the chest can be open, shoulders are back. Very nice work. Okay. So last time or 2, depending on how fast you go through these. And when you come back into the center, feel where the knees move into your chest and hands to the bolster. Push the bolster. I like to take caution, like right before the bolster's not under my tailbone. I like to kind of hold that and feel that circulation into the digestive tract. And then press away. And then the feet onto the bolster. Okay. Now feel when the hinges of the knees push into the ball. Okay, I find this to be not my most happy moment, is to have a push into the ball and then the lower back has a little bit of a crease. So now I want you to be sure that just the bolster is far enough down away from you so that you can actually comfortably push into the feet. Lift up the hips so it's kind of a push back into the upper back, arms overhead. Blanket is an option now. Okay, lower the spine and let the arms stay lifting. This is a bit of a change when the back completely releases down through the lumbar. Okay, so the ball is just a spacer. You don't have to actively push in, but keep it between the knees. So inhale, lift up the hips, stretch the arms, reach them back overhead or over shoulders. Okay, now feel the glutes gripping. And as you exhale and lower the parts of the back, and this is really interesting because when the arms move up towards the ceiling, then you kind of hold back on pushing them down. You could bring them to the thighs and then kind of smooth out the back of the pelvis. Let's try that. So hands at the thighs to start, so they're kind of mid-thigh or a little bit higher because some like to feel that stretch of the hip flexors. So when you push into your hands and lift the hips up, getting the front of the thigh lids reaching, and then the arms motion back. Okay, now the hips might go a little higher because you have a bolster under your feet. It's one of the reasons why I like the bolster for bridge. Now, when you lower down, okay, see if you can reach the hands to the ball, how far you can reach just with the spine down, and then bring the knees in the smallest amount to get the ball, take it away, and then place it under the left glute. So on over to the left buttock. And I don't want to say what glute part because we'll just say glutes. Okay. And then lower down the body weight. So it's going to feel like it's one-sided. So you might be trying to twist your spine, but let the weight go down to the ball first and then massage. I got to get my ball a little bit to the side of my, not right in the middle, but a little bit to the side. So it's kind of the top of the buttock, right, glute medius, and then you're going to massage into the glutes. And yeah, let the ball be wherever it's comfortable for you. If you want to move it a little farther out to the lateral side of the leg, but give it a little time where you just let the body weight lie into the ball. You can even kind of smoosh into the ball and glide the knees over. This is pretty helpful for back as well. It's not necessarily just the glute. Smooths out some of that holding pattern that tightens our backs at times. Okay, now feel if you can actually move the hips over to the left as much as you can go, and then help out, move the ball over to the right glute, and then pushing. On one side, you probably have a different adaptive quality to the ball. I find my right glute is kind of just works better with it. Okay. So something about that, right? Maybe there's more holding patterns, more to work on. But when you're pushing down into the ball, feel that shear pressure on the skin, the connective tissue below the cloth, right? It's kind of pulling it. You want that connective tissue over that muscle to get some slide and glide. Okay. All right. Now, when we bring the body weight, lean the hips towards the left now, then you'll push into your feet just the right amount, lift the hips up, slide the ball out, and then take a block. I would take one across so it's horizontal like we started, right? We had this kind of position, but hold on to the block and see if you can, it's clearly pushed on the floor, right? The block is down. Now, scoot the tailbone under. Sometimes holding onto the cloth of your pants is helpful, kind of moving it away so you have some idea of how you're relating in the pelvi. And then I feel like there's a little bit of a scoop of the pelvis, and then I relax my glutes. It's like I just let them relax. So I'm held onto the block. Okay. Legs stretched down on the bolster. Maybe they touch the wall a little bit. But feel how this whole side band of the leg, kind of the thicker part of the leg, you might bring the feet apart and then let that whole band, it's got a lot of circulation in it from the last massage work we did here. So try to keep that open across. You could put sand here. I'm okay with letting my arms relax down by my sides, palms open, and just let the hip joints center. Receive that circulation. Give it a few moments. Feel the lift of the belly. Now, if the front of the hips is just purely lightly open, that's kind of the reality it might be. Okay, scan from the place the block is. Notice that awareness, that's pressure. And then all the way up from that block is a nice support for your spine. Natural curve. It's pretty nice. Okay, now the next breath or two, feel that the abdominal area tries to lift on the inhale. Okay, and then on the exhalation, kind of hook back into the centerpiece of the body and slide the feet up so the knees are pointed up, feet up on the bolster. And then let's push down just a light amount, actually maybe 70%, it's true. You have to push a bit more than a light to slide the block out, not kerplunk down. And then as you let the spine lower, okay, try taking a crossover with the left leg over the right with the bolster under your feet. Just feel the left leg cross over the right. So what happens with the right knee is it kind of switches inwards, right? That's kind of the reality. So with the crossing, you kind of use that other leg to help stretch out this hip in time. So I let the right foot step over the left side of my bolster, and then the knees swerve to the right. I like using a ball at the sacrum, but I do like the block under my leg on that right side. And the ball, could be under your leg if it doesn't feel very purposeful here. One thing you might kind of feel for is the ball and the block are about the same plane. So kind of notice. Don't let them fly away. Okay. Take a sandbag to the side of the left leg. If this feels like a very, intertwined hip opener, it is. It's very cross, latched, connected, kind of a locked pose. So if it feels too locked up, you can always, just skip this one and have the bolster on the side of your mat and let the leg cross over. Okay, so I'll show that one, but some of us might be with this and be okay. If you're not so sure, here's your variation. It would be push the bolster to the right side and cross the leg over, ball, same spot area, and then the sand to the side of the leg. This feels good too. I like variety with it. If my knee is feeling competent to do the other one, I give it a try. But it's okay to go back to what we might be used to. Okay, so feel where that base leg is. Some of us have the super twister one, so the leg is kind of locked in. In this version, my lower leg has some freedom to move and bend, just a little bit. So purposely center however you can, right? You're crossed over so the hip is kind of in a turn. Stretch the breath. Relax the brain. Your head might be center, it might be turned to the left. Or right now you might turn it. Sense where there's a load, where the sand might be for you. There's circulation into the hip. And now slide the sand away. If your feet are on the bolster, all you'll do is move the ball, uncross, and let the feet be on the bolster and windshield wiper side to side. If you have a bolster on the side, you need to move it over to the left. But again, if your bolster is below you, your windshield wiper, so you let your feet be on top of it and side to side. And if your feet are on the floor, it works, it's just as well. Having the bolster under your feet, I like this a little bit more because I can bend the knees and then it puts weight into my hip when I massage the glutes here. This doesn't require a ball, but it's a subtle kind of flush through the connective tissue. Okay, now when you change the crossing, kind of set your position here so that right leg lifts, the left knee pushes in to the midline. And then when the knees go to the left, I have to slide my foot on the bolster to the right and then let from the ribs down through the leg to turn. So I want to feel the rib cage twist. So the ball put to the sacrum area can be kind of nice here because it kind of sets it brings an anchor into that pelvis, right? It also kind of maybe brings some stabilization. So I find the block to be quite important here for me. I just feel like it's helpful because I have somewhere to go with the leg. I don't want it to be kind of in space without support. Okay, you can always lower it down. And with the sand on the outer kind of bank of the hip, you might find that you do need to lower your block because it stretches out the hip enough that the block is too high and it's kind of poking into your leg. Yeah, I'm still a little bit up with that one. It feels better there. Okay, so arm is open. Now, some of you might have your bolster on the side of the mat, besides the mat, and the leg crosses over just as well. But as your head rolls to the right, feel the shoulder on that right side, center back. Closing your eyes. And just that slow flow of the breath. Yeah, instead of trying to push and increase the stretch, maybe accept just the right amount of momentum with the legs, feeling that firm support of the upper body. Right, it's all these living tissues in your inside. Your bone is living, and so you're working with putting some stresses on it with the sand, with the rotation. And then be mindful if it feels like too sharp of a stretch, you've got to back off and change it. Yeah, you have to be, personally mindful of your choices here and honor your limitations. So if you start to feel like it's too much now, it's time to get out. You can always come out of the pose. You can always come into constructive rest or just let the legs stretch down. Or bring the knees to your chest, any option. Once there's that smooth motion in the torso, the weight of the hips is centered. Shoulders are back, and they're just resting back. And then when we slide the ball away, either version is going to probably have a ball with it. Let's put the ball over towards the left, okay? And then when we slide the sand away, I'm trying to think, sand will go to the left too. Trying to think doesn't help, does it? Come back in center and then uncross and hold the back of the legs and get a feeling of when you hold the back of the legs, how the spine situates itself, right? How you situate on the lower back and a little bit into the mid back because the knees are bending so it connects to the ribs. It's usually about how it goes, unless you don't have a very long femur, could be different, I suppose, but this is a pretty long part that then brings the knees closer to the rib space. Okay, kind of a meaningful position for the massage into the digestive area. Okay, now we're going to roll up at your choice to come into a little bit of a core focus so you can roll to the side and come up to sitting. Just be cautious that you might feel very happy in your back right now. But when you roll up, you want to feel like your chest moves forward. And as you go up, you feel forward with the chest. Try to push it forward versus kind of this pressure back. It's tricky, I think. Try to get this heart lift. Especially since we've been on our back for a while. Okay, so let's see. Let's have our bolster. Let's just leave it here. If you have it at the front, if you have it on the side, put it in front. And let's place our sand on our feet. Okay, so if you have the bolster like near your calves, so it's kind of far forward. I'll move this so you can see a little better. Yeah. So if I have the bolster farther up, right under my thighs, like this version, yeah, that's not as good, right? So I want to push it forward. Should feel really kind of strange. You got the sand on your feet. You got this bolster. Now these hip flexors are getting kind of excited about it. So find the sitting bones. That's key. Move the heart forward. Bring the hands forward so they're apart. Palms towards each other. And then inhaling, we're trying to lift the heart. That's all. You can feel your sitting bones pretty firm here. And then as you lean back, I want you to let the elbows drop by the sides. Inhale, this time arms go up towards the sky when you sit forward. Exhale, elbows by the side, lean back. Keep it real simple though. Inhale, forward and up with the arms. Should be a little small sensation in the mid body. Lean back. You're limited how far you go back because of the sandbag, right? And then come forward. The sand is great. And then this time when you lean back, I want you to get rid of the bolster. So try it without the bolster. Push it out, okay? Lean back. I don't know if the bolster was that helpful. And then come forward. What changes is the movement of my hips a little bit. It seems like that I'm kind of rocking and rolling on my sits bones. Rolling on the sits. Okay, last one. Lean back. Okay, now slide your hands under the backs of the knees. Slide the feet out from the sand. Hold the backs of the legs. Try to lift your heart. It's you can actually get the heart to move up and then it kind of maybe sinks a bit. So pull the legs in towards the chest and then lift up the feet. Your very raw, basic boat pose with no belts attached, no strings attached. And then lower down the feet and take the feet as wide as they can comfortably settle. Hold the backs of the legs. It's maybe not right under the knees, but the back of the legs. And lift the chest. Okay. Now, when you place the hands back, you're going to reach back to your blanket. I think you'll probably I'm going to use two. I'm just going to have a very comfy position. Okay, so scoot forward, feet to the wall, and then pull the blanket in. Now, we're all different lengths with our legs, so this is not going to be everybody's exact positioning measurement. We can't all get a ruler on this one. So push into your hands, lift up, and actually I need to go forward. I want you to have your feet to touch the wall a little bit. So you'll find out how this is going to go. So you gotta go forward. No, not that tall. Okay, so feet touch the wall. All right. So when I lift up through the waist, I can kind of feel this little bit of pressure here at the hip, the tops of the thighs. They're kind of nagging here. So bring the left foot to slide in, cross it over the right leg. Make sure your right foot pushes into the base of the wall. So you're not like sliding, your foot's not high up on the wall. That would be really a nightmare for the hip flexor, huh? So with that leg crossed, it turns the knee a little bit. We'll get to that stuff in a bit. The leg cross, it has a little shift in the knee, but I want you to let the lift be at the chest. I know you got to effort a bit. Turn to the left hand back, maybe a block back there, and right elbow to the outside of the left leg and twist. Yeah, this one finally, when I hook the elbow and I get it into a nice spot onto that left leg, I can start to feel the activity level in my obliques. A lot of abdominal muscles get this one. So I think the key for this is to push the wall with the foot, okay? And not get so pushy that I'm starting to wiggle my rear, right? The left rear kind of wiggles a little bit if you push too firm with the right foot. So the right amount of firmness, let the right arm stretch down and lift the heart. Breathe. So you basically have turned left, right arm at that left leg, and the right arm pushing the left leg brings the knee into the center. So look to your knee and notice if it's, in a pretty good comparison with the lower leg. So you're not twisting the knee to the other side of the room by any means, right? So you have this nice kind of barrier here with the strength of the arm and the flexibility. This is quite the mobile position for the stomach. I know we got flexible colons. Okay, so feel when you're turning and you come back in center, okay? Slide the right foot in, left foot forward of the right shin or knee, and take a forward bend. I like to put a sandbag on the left thigh for this one, so I'll just add it at the very top. And when you lean forward, you might aim for the wall. This is a little bit extreme for some of us, but it's good for that back zone. You can also put your bolster in front. If it's right next to the wall, it's tipped up. This is probably the best for my back muscles. It's not too strenuous. I can layer into the position with my breath. Okay. So I'm trying to lean a little forward to circulate into my hips. Okay, a little spine extension for me. For some of you, you might do more flexion, but I'm going to keep working on extension. Right, which may be for some less compression in the vertebral column, but feel what's right for you. If you need to do a little flexing, it's okay. Okay, now when you lower down, if you've got the bolster, I want you to switch through this. So the left leg goes straight to the wall, sand goes away, right leg crosses over the left. So the right foot, if you need to spend some energy on the foot next to the left leg instead of over it, like right next to it, and just feel how your ribs move center, right? So they're going to move out and then back in. And then when you cross the leg over, right, it's going to put a little bit of positioning into your foot at the wall. Push, lift up the heart. Okay. And if your neck starts to get really gripped up, you might nod your head, tilt your ear to your shoulder, shrug your shoulders. Do a couple of these motions that are just spontaneous for you. And then when you turn, you do try to keep that heart lifted all the way to the right. Okay, once you bring the right hand back and you find a position, whether it's on the floor or a block, blocks have 3 heights, right? So likely is helpful. I find once I hook the left arm to the side of the right leg, then I can kind of let my heart relax in its position. And I don't have to purposely go lift, 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 which could stiffen up your breath. That sounds funny, stiffen up your breath. Serious problem. Okay, so when you rotate, feel if you tend to pull your belly in. I know one side you might have these operating errors occasionally. You just tend to grip. It could be digestive stuff. And I know it's complex, I think. So feel the turn and then feel that right leg. It's positioned up with the knee. So if the knee's starting to get slouchy like this, it's kind of rolling out. You've got to use your left arm to hook the side of that right leg and push the foot so the toes are up for this parallel. Rotate. Yeah, feel the waist turn. You notice your habits of grounding. That's just part of human. Okay. So you might find that pushing with the arm, lifting with the heart. I know it takes effort to not let gravity have you in these poses. It takes some breathing, some awareness lifting. Okay. Now, when you come back forward, turn the waist, the arm slides away from the leg, the right leg crosses forward to the left, and then we just take that sand to the right thigh. And you might find that lifting up from a center cross-legged position and then reaching with the front of the spine, the heart. Yeah, I like the bolster. Now you could have the bolster this way too. It just might be like it's too close, for you to get much out of it, but it might work for some people. Yeah. One side you might go, oh, it's so much easier to get the wall. Likely there's little particles of difference, right, from one hip to the other. So feel when you land. Now we're going to kind of blend just a few more motions. I want us to get a light amount of hands and knees work before we finish up today. So the reality of our sequencing, right, is some slow curiosity of connecting upper lower body. Okay. So when you come forward, you move forward, you feel where the spine circulation is pretty toned. And now when you come back up, take a moment where I think the bolster could just be right by the side. And then just a mini moment here. We're going to turn to face away from the wall. You can have a blanket under your knee. You might not need it. If you don't use a blanket under your knee for the home practice, that's okay. But take a block set in front on the inside of the mat and step the right foot forward between the blocks and kind of massage the circulation now. With all the things we've done, right? This is like our putting the pose pattern together, the pathway. So lift the back knee. I'm using the wall kind of with pretty eager pressure with my foot. And then that's going to pull through the stomach. Feel that right knee position straight up from the ankle, not back, not over the ankle. Take a few breaths here. Feel the lunge. So it's a simple low lunge. Now, some of you might want to have your knee on the blanket. Some might be okay with the knee up. I'm trying to let the efforting kind of take over here. Feel a little full effort with my leg muscles. Okay. Now I use the blocks with a little more height to get a step forward. It's a little easier on the hip and the knee. So I bend the left knee and then step forward, use the wall to push off of, and then feel the feet, hips distance or slightly wider, parallel, and then motion the arms forward with the blocks. So you have spine extension. Reach through the waist forwards. Keep the knees apart. Huge deal here. Reach the hips back, bring your arms forward, come up off the blocks, and then knees apart, push into your heels, all the corners of the bottom of the feet. Lift up the arms, inhale, lift the heart, lift the gaze, up between the hands, and open your arms out. Straight back with the arms, bend the knees. Take some care that when the arms reach forward back to the blocks, that you lower the chest towards the legs. Now this is only if you're comfortable with your circulation to let your head lower down from the spine. So the weight of the head stretches the spine. If you want to hold the backs of the legs or drain out, let the arms dangle is great. Okay. Now as the knees bend, you're going to reach to the blocks and take the feet back closer together. And feel when the right knee stretches, or the leg actually stretches back. It can't just be the knee, it's got other parts. And feel how the heel touches the wall. That wall came up pretty close for me there. So as you feel that left knee bending, it's just easier to get into these lunge patterns from standing, period, I think. So you might find, oh, I'm just a little higher in my hip bones. This is an easier circulation, which is true, but the left knee may be farther back. So try to move it forward so it's above the ankle. You can let the right heel stretch towards the floor. You can also have the right knee on the blanket. This might feel better for some of us in our hip flexor. Well, not better, but it's more stretch. Take a moment here where there's length in the torso. Even if the knee is up, try to get the torso to reach forward. Careful the knee isn't over the toes. Okay, your nose could be over the knee, but maybe not your toes. Your knee over your toes. Okay, lower down that back knee and then take the left foot back. Take child's pose of choice. So what you'll do is you'll motion so the arms could be forward and the knees are wide. The chest stretches through and the forehead touches down. Okay, this is kind of the classic child's pose, right? The hands are quite far out on the mat. Some of us, this is just too much, right? Our hips have to be high or barely with that position. It's a lot of inner thigh pressure. Okay, but give a little inner thigh circulation. Okay, now coming up to table, we're gonna shift our knees over to the side and take the blanket to the back, kind of middle of the mat, the bolster to the center, right next to the wall, and then get your sandbag near the wall and scoot up so that your hips are up on the bolster and you'll swing the legs upside down eventually when you get everything all connected. So roll to come up to Viparita Karani and let the balance of the, maybe even kind of wait before you get pushy with your hips getting closer to the wall. You might get a feeling of the chest open and then the feet pushing. I try to see what I can do without my typical maneuvers to get closer to the wall. So the chest opening is a pretty big part of it. Tail scooping under and then trying to do upside down work. Okay. Caterpillar. Okay. In yin yoga, this shape is caterpillar, right? When you're sitting. All right, so when the spine is centered, right, you might even give yourself a hug to get that spine centered down between the blades. Once you get that, you can add your sand to your feet. You might sometimes like to go without it at the wall. Sometimes this I can kind of sense, okay, should I do this with or without the sand? Right, some people like to go into Baddha Konasana at the wall if you have a really big wall space. You know, you could take the legs more into a wide stance. So if I had a lot of wall space, I'd probably go with that on occasion, just so I can work on that adductor circulation, and adding the sand intensifies that flush of the lymph right in the groins. So stimulating the flow of lymph, or the legs could be out. And if you move the legs out wide and it's like you can't quite get centered to relax, you could put blocks right at the very side of the hip so that you have sort of a holding position for the legs. You can also put a belt around the feet to hold the feet to that wide stance. So I would play with that. Maybe have to turn to that wall, but I think we should do that sometime. Okay. Arms centered, shoulders, relaxing back and closing your eyes. If you have an eye pillow, put that on and stretch the attention to the mid body, that navel center with your breath. And feel how the hips are kind of anchoring that circulation in the legs, which is really important for our heart and our lungs and our brain when we get upside down. So the heart doesn't have to work so hard pumping and moving that down to the feet and back to the heart. So you have this this vascular return to the heart. The happy heart pose. Maybe feeling the movement of the breath in the core. Maybe the arms are down. Trust your body to bring you back to balance. And just ruminate on that idea of it, trusting your body and these cycles of movement. It's its own language, just that movement, breath. Now with the knees in a slight bend, right, depending on the relationship of the weight of the pelvis to your bolster, you want to feel if the feet shift away from the wall, that it's comfortable on the opposite side, right in the lower abdominal band. You want that to feel like it can move with the breath. Okay, so your choice with moving the sand off is up to you. So if you feel comfortable bending the knees and kind of letting it just drop off, if you like to be instructive to your sand by reaching for it, that's okay. But of course, it's about kind of trusting the body's movement to discard the prop. But the hands can clutch the back of the legs or below the knees, and as the field of the back has its kind of final full stretch here. And if you like to move your legs back overhead, that's fine. It's for some people it works okay. It's a lot of contour of the neck though, if you keep pushing the weight to your neck. So try to keep that circulation in the mid back. And then rock a little side to side, and a little is the key, just a little bit side to side. And then feel that gentle squeeze of the legs in towards the center, and remain aware of that stretch in your back when the knees go to one side. And then roll, feel what rolling is like, and then push and come up. Right, the more scooped up you get, the easier it is to get up to sitting, I think. Come up to the bolster so that you're, didn't really leave it, but you do change how your hips are blending their focus from being on your back. Right now you switch to the seat and letting the glutes kind of stretch out. Bring your hands up to balance in front of your heart center. And let's let a moment shift inside. And feel the movement of the breath below the heart. Try to feel how aware you are of your breath below the heart, in the abdomen, in the ribs, massaging the organs. And for a breath for your self-care and for others in practice today and outwards, inhale. And exhale. Bowing into the space behind your heart. Namaste. Okay, thank you. All right.